approximately 15% decrease in fire department, and all that is related to capital outlay. They have, like I said, they have about $745,000 capital outlay budget this year, so that is a one-time expenditure this year that won't be next year. So that's why you see that decrease. And then the remainder of that decrease is related to estimated overtime and departmental supplies. See what's a couple other items of note. Again, reduction in DPW, but again, those are related to kind of one-offs, one time for the capital. The $135,000 a day decrease was capital outlay items in the current year. And then the reduction, the balance of reduction is just the removal of the Good to Gate program out of DPW, and the administration said they'll see how this fiscal year ends up first before they revisit that to see what funds are available next year.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject for 1 second on, whether it's Good to Great or the capital outlay. It's our intent that as we monitor this situation and things progress, if we get good news, we're telling department heads, we're going to do our best to bring these items back. But at that point in time, we'll bring in a budget amendment with it. So, we have to try to project a realistic budget. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of these capital items being removed. And we will literally monitor this month by month.
Sure. Okay. Just a couple other notes, really. Street lighting, $585,000 decrease, or almost 30%. And what that's related to is, again, capital outlay. If you recall, this current year and the prior year, we've had some significant one-time costs for LED street light conversions, which resulted in savings in the street light cost, and also savings to the taxpayers for the special assessments for street lighting. So those one-time costs are expected to go away, and now we will only have the cost of the operating of the street lights. So that's why you see that decrease there.
And those reductions, Mr. Chairman, do get shared with the residents that are paying the special assessment. So the LED investment's paying off.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. And then just the last kind of larger decrease is in the transfers others, and that's related to the golf course. As we were talking about the golf course, the current year $580,000 transfer is expected to be $290,000 next year. So that's why you see that decrease in that item. So overall, we have an estimated increase of fund balance of approximately $148,000, which would bring our unassigned fund balance, is not on the screen, but I got my report, what brings the unassigned fund balance to 20.6% of revenues. So we're still in that 20% range. And my recommendation is to stay above that 20% by all means if we can. But having a good fund balance, 20%, does mean that we do have pretty decent fund balance to help weather the storm that would come from this pandemic. So it does help to have that size of fund balance. So. Okay, any questions on the overview at all for 21? And then, of course, we'll be going into the department details with the department heads. So that's just the overview. And just real quick before we get into departments, I'd like to bring up on the screen to show you guys on that detail report kind of the graphs. I kind of like to go over those graphs with you guys every year. So show you like the tax rates and things like that. So it starts on page 12 of your document, your detailed document, page 12. Talks about the, first of all, you have your SCV, or your state equalized value trend. As you can see on the dotted line, that's your SCV. As you can see, it's going up a lot more than your taxable value, and that's because the taxable value is limited how much it can increase based on Proposal A and Headley tax items that were passed back in the 90s. So as the SCV goes up, the taxable value goes up very slowly. So, and then you can see how that, the last 5 years of how that data was. So as you can see, we have roughly just over a 2% increase in our taxable value. The next page is just going over the proposed levy. And again, it is a thing to note that we don't have the communication from the county yet regards the EPA judgment debt. So once that comes in, we may have to reevaluate that levy, but we'll take a look. That EPA, if you guys are not aware of it, the EPA levy debt is something that has been going on in the city since the early 90s, and is related to 13 of the downriver communities and their the sewer system of the county. There was a judgment levy that was that was levied to paid bonds. Those bond payments actually, except for a small portion, mature next year. So this is the last year of the larger payments, the 2021 year. So in '22, we expect that this levy will actually be removed because there's a small portion of that payment left, and that could be incorporated into the sewer fund. So that's exciting good news on the levy side is that bond payment is actually expired or maturing this year. So, but as you can see on this screen or on page on page 13 is that there is a small increase in the levy, and that is related to the Police and Fire Retirement Fund. As you recall, we have Act 345 where we have to pay for the police and fire pension and retiree costs, and we have a levy that would pay for it. So we anticipate that for the obligations, we anticipate a 0.2 mil increase in that area, and the expected levy for the city total would be 27.296 compared to 27.096. So,
Got a question for you. Can we expect that, as far as the increase goes with the police and fire retirement systems, can we expect a constant growth, no matter what the rate is, to continue to fund that? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're saying here a 0.2, whatever it may be, to fund that, can we expect that every year?
through the chair, if I may, it really depends on a couple of factors. Now, we do have some reserve that we're using to offset the millage increase, but at a certain point in time, that reserve won't be enough to do any offset. So it's been the administration plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, it's been the administration plan to kind of phase in the levy, but there is a, like I said, there is a flat amount. There's a point where it gets to a flat amount, but all is based on, every year that changes based on return on investments in the pension fund, increased liability, if there's any changes to the benefits or something like that. So it's really a moving target, but what the administration is looking at, we do like a rolling 5-year estimate of what that will be to kind of come up with a plan to make sure that if there is a change to the levy, that it's minimal. So, and then doing that analysis, we came up with the 0.2 mil increase at this year. So. And then now this one, it's hard to let me see if I can turn this, but the next page is, I can turn this. There you go. Next page is something I like to show is the tax rates. So this is the average tax rate for 2019 for the communities listed. As you can see, where Taylor falls in the average tax rate. It includes school, county, and city tax rate. So if you guys want, like I said, gives a good information on where the city falls and compared to other communities around us. Next slide is just going over the property tax revenue. So as our levy, where all the revenue goes to, just kind of gives more graphical data. Assuming the average taxable value is $38,000, the average taxpayer pays just over $1,000, $1,037 of taxes for city. And then you can see the percentages where it goes to operating, police and fire, pensions, and the other millages. Page 16 is the general fund revenues, total revenues by activity. So you can see our largest revenue is taxes and special assessments, closely followed by the fines, forfeitures, and other reimbursements, other revenue areas, and then state share revenue is actually our second, state share revenue, and then fines and forfeitures. So,
Question.
yes.
This basically what it's showing is, as far as the revenue, if God forbid if something was to happen and we ended up cutting back a tremendous amount with fines and forfeiture problems, then we could actually be in a lot of problems. You know what I'm saying? If there's always chances of things not occurring as we expect, especially with fines and forfeitures, because things can happen as far as what goes on within those fines or how the fines are, what they are. A prime example, you never know day to day, as far as personnel in the ticket writing details or any of this. So it appears that we're depending a great deal on fines and forfeitures, that it's become part of our, and it's been here for years. It's nothing new, but you can see that amount is pretty large to depend on. And hopefully that things continue, and hopefully down the road maybe we can find other ways to maybe deal with this. It would be hard, it's gonna be hard to change a lot of this now, and I realize that because of the way the economies are and everything, but I'm just emphasizing, it amazes how much we become dependent. That's a 17.9% dependency.
Yep, it's 18% of the revenue, so obviously that's it's a large percentage, so.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor.
I think that's safe to say for most revenue sources. The license, permits, I mean, all of these are moving targets, and, we have to do our job to make sure that they're somewhat stable. And that line item of fines and forfeitures, I mean, plus or minus, it's been, something relatively close to that for 20 years or better.
Okay, just moving on, just real quick, on 17 is where we start talking about some expenditures. As you can see, 32% of the expenditures are general government, which includes retiree costs as well. About 40% is related to public safety. And then